What's going on, Illumineers, and welcome back to the madness. This video, we're talking about the Safari Zone case tournament that I quote unquote won this past weekend. And at the end of it, we're going to we're going to talk about what deck I used and my other thoughts going into the event about other SteelSong lists that I would use. And then also at the end, we're going to showcase one of a really, really good red-blue matchup that I was on the play and took the win, and then just have some notes throughout the video that played a part, mistakes highlighting those, especially on my part. But it was a great tournament. It was a lot of fun, and at the end, I got a nice little picture taken, but. In my Stitch attire that I really love. That's now my lucky jersey. But it was a really fun tournament. There was 24 people, and I talk about win because I only ended up playing 3 matches. It was 5 rounds, and I won my first 3 matches: 2-1, 2-0, 2-0, red, blue, purple, steel, or it may have been purple, yellow. I think it was red, blue, and 2 purple yellows. One was a really aggro list, and the other was, I think, also aggro. And then my next 2 matches, we just drew. My last opponent really wanted to draw. My other opponent they're both locals. So when it comes to locals, I'm more willing to draw than when they're not locals, because then it benefits our local store. So we did draw. And then when we got to top 8, everybody really wanted to go home. So I was top seed going into top 8, but everyone really wanted to go home. So I agreed with the other 7, like, we can just split the case between all 8, and we can go home. All 8 that were in the top 8 were locals between our 2 stores. So I was more than happy to see, it's important to keep your relationships alive in your local community. Because I didn't let anything happen. None of us let anything happen, but it's just really important to do stuff like that, because sure, we could have played it to top 4. I was top seed, so I would have gone first, and so I had the favor of getting into top 4. But then 4 of our locals don't get to play, and it's just the opportunity was there, and I think that is more beneficial to your local community than playing it out all the way to the end. So that's just my opinion. I'll never fault anyone that wants to play it all the way out. Would I have been upset if we played it out? No, but I also wasn't going to be the one to say no. But let's talk about the event. What would you guys do? What are your thoughts on it? Do you think when it comes to something like this, it's super local, it's a 24-person event, would you have agreed to split top 8, or would you have been the no? And again, no fault. I'm just curious what you guys think. What would you have done if you were in my position, knowing you were the number 1 seed and knowing that you're not guaranteed top 4, but your opponent would have been an aggro player, so you would have been favored into it? So yeah, anyways, let's jump into the actual list itself. These were my MVPs. Yeah, we got to talk about these 2 really quick because they were amazing. And we'll get rid of the fireworks, our red, white, and blue fireworks we're cheering for NA, okay, in the LCCC. But what's going on with this? Lilo and Cinderella were my MVPs. And this is kind of a big deal because I did not like Cinderella in the last set. In set 5, I didn't play Cinderella in really any of my lists. I don't know if I ever played her down, really. I don't know. I didn't like the idea of Cinderella. No one was really letting me keep baby Cindy. I wasn't really forcing the shift, though, so I just didn't play it in favor of other things. And she really shined yesterday in 2 of my matches, and one of them being the red-blue match where questing for 3 was just massive. And that was just playing her for 7. I never got to shift her, but I don't think I did. But the ability to just quest, like, it's something that has to be answered. So I was using her to bait the B prep. I got to bait the B prep, and then the 2 turns later, I was able to play Pete and Cinderella to win the game that way. And it was huge. So Cinderella, huge MVP. Lilo was another massive MVP. I've been a fan of Lilo from the start, even with all of her negatives. Just the fact that she continues to come back is massive. It's so big. It played a huge part this weekend. One game, my game 3, I would have won sooner if I'd remembered about Lilo, and game 2 may have been a different outcome if I remembered about Lilo. So Lilo, awesome. Just a really, really great card for the red blue matchup, for any control matchup, really. But what was, I thought I had, there we go. Well, look at this really quick. So this was my actual list overall. The 4 daisies, 4 Cindy's, the 2 daisies, the 2 Lilos. And then we go with the 4 Zeuses and the 4 Ursulas. And I call this the 4x4 Big Rig. But I wanted to try this because I knew there's a lot of genies right now. It's a $20 cold foil rare. So it's a good card. So it has to be respected. So I respected it by playing Zeus's. And going this route, my aerial pretty much always hits a damage song. And if I'm playing Ursula's and Cindy's, I almost always have a way to sing that damage song when I play aerial. And so I just really like the ability to control the board. Even if I'm using a Zeus on a cursed merfolk, that means it's not questing for 2 again. And at this point, if I'm using a Zeus on a cursed merfolk, it's either it's going to quest for 4 the next turn, or quest for 6 the turn after that. And that's a really good trade in my opinion. And so I really want to do this. And all of the Zeuses, the Ursulas, they paid dividends. They did really, really good. So that was a huge, huge thing. Now, going back to the list, no Plutos. And you guys know I was really big on Plutos, and I still am. And I still want to find a way to fit Pluto. Just Pluto, in all of my testing, continues to shine, continues to do great things. And it's a stellar card against red blue as well, trading into that Maui. It's just such a good card. And I just don't know where to add it yet. So we have a question mark here, but we're going to fit it in somewhere. Just the question is where. And maybe it's at losing 1 Lawrence and an Ursula. Maybe that is the answer. I don't know. We have to play with it. And back here you see the arrows. That is something else. Like, how do I deal? Where do I go with that route? Do I want to up my daisies? Do I want to up my Lilos? Because Lilos did so well. But at the same time, one of my aggro games, I simply just won out because I played both daisies. I played a daisy on turn 1, and I think turn 3 I played another daisy. And I didn't quest with them, but I was able to control their 1-drop 1/1s with them. So I wasn't giving them card draw, but then when I started to gain a board, it didn't matter anymore that I was giving them, like an aggro player, cards to play, because I was just questing for so much per turn. So them questing for getting to play 2 characters the next turn, it just didn't matter. And so I still think Daisy, I'm seeing people cut them. If you look at Frank Karsten's list, he didn't play any daisies. Frank Karsten's not a fan of Daisy. Even in his article during the Vegas, right before the Vegas DLC, he only talked about 1 daisy. It's an unequal 1-drop, and that benefits your opponent. So I don't know. Maybe it's stay at 2. Maybe up Lilo's to 3. How do I fit in Pluto's? You guys get, Lilo's to 3. How do I fit in Pluto's still? You guys get the idea. We continue to run into this issue with SteelSong of how do we make all this stuff fit? And maybe we're trying too hard. Maybe we're focusing too hard. Maybe there's a way that we cut a Zeus and we cut an Ursula still. We go back to 3/3, and that gives me 2 Plutos. And then we cut a Lawrence, there's 3, and that gives me a 3rd Daisy or a 3rd Lilo. And because we have to think of, we weren't struggling into aggro stuff last set. So why do we really need to focus? But at the same time, we have to respect Genie. And Genie does present a really big issue because it's hard to get 4 characters on the board against purple when they can actively trade whenever they want. So there's good arguments here. And strength is typically only great if you do see a wheel, because then you can really flood the board and then your wheel sees a lot of damage. So what happens when you don't see a whole new world? So there's still a lot of room to grow, and that's for those of you going to the LCQs in Paris, I believe this weekend, I think, maybe next weekend. You guys are running out of time to test, but over here in the NA, we still have a lot of time. But this kind of gives you somewhere to start. Like, this did really well into aggro. It did really, really well into aggro. We've seen people with these lists doing really well across the board. Boomie did well with a list very similar to this at the Axion event, I think. It was a big event in Europe. So one thing we do know is Lilos are doing really well. People are really liking Lilo into red blue, into red purple, because it punishes the B preps. And so do not, if you've been on the edge again about Lilo, definitely give her a try. But we'll talk about some other things specific to Lilo in a little bit. I still want to try the queens, but at the same time, if I go queens, I probably cut an Ursula, because the queens kind of do the same thing as Ursula, except singing Zeus a turn earlier. With that said, queen is susceptible to smash, susceptible to all these steel spells better, susceptible to Calhoun. It's worse into the mirror match. So maybe Robin Hood is the best answer right now in the current meta. It really depends. Does green purple, does red purple, do they continue to beat down the red blue enough that no one feels safe playing red blue? And that's kind of been the trend, is we're not seeing a lot of red blue right now. There's a really good tier list that went out, put red blue as tier 2, but maybe it just needs more time. But let's talk about a couple other lists. Nothing's changed about this one. I believe I showcased this one the other week, but this is a list that I almost ran. I took 3 different SteelSong lists with me. I took a total of 6 deck lists with me, printed off of Dreamborn, and there were 3 very big different SteelSong lists, 2 just a couple cards different in this list, and then my 6th list was a Blurple deck. I had no idea what I wanted to play. So with that, this aggro doc list is something that I've been playing with for a while, that I've seen a lot of success with. I've really enjoyed it. Tiana has been an absolute monster. She's extremely difficult to deal with. If she does get to live, she does get to play. It forces your opponent, do I brawl the Tiana? Do I brawl the Piglet, the Daisy? All these different things, because the answer, it will almost always be Tiana. I don't know a world where you don't. But if you let the Piglet live, like, that's 6 lore at that point. So there's good arguments for both. I still don't know if Doc is the way. I prefer Wheel, but in this list, it's going super, super fast. Then Doc does play a part. It does feel nice. The Simbas are here because it's a little bit nicer later in the game than maybe a Kita or a Robin Hood or a 1-drop Lilo. I wouldn't add 1-drop Lilos because I don't want more on Inkables. Not where right now we're at 4, 8, 12, 16, 17, 18, which isn't too bad, but at the same time, I'm also not going to be able to mulligan super heavy depending on what I mulligan. What's the power behind this list, though? It's the fact that Cindy's what makes this Amber Steel aggro possible. The fact that she can sit there and kind of control your board, or even make people afraid to do things, is just top tier. Calhoun continues to just shine and kick butt and do phenomenal things. Pluto in this list is phenomenal. I wouldn't up the Lawrence, because as I up these cards, then it makes it a little bit harder as I up more of these higher cost cards, because these are already so heavy, it makes Doc a little bit worse. So Smash is there because it just handles the Ursula Deceiver of Alls, and it handles aerials into the mirror. And if they can't sing Whole New World, then I get to play Doc for free. So there's a lot of opportunity with this list. I've really enjoyed it. I really just chickened out of playing aggro. I had all intents and purposes to play aggro, and I kind of just chickened out because I'm not as comfortable with it yet as the more control lists. But with that being said, this is a list that is going to look very familiar because it's very similar to what Boomie ran in Seattle. And you guys have heard me talk about Boomie plenty of times on this channel. I continue to come back to Boomie's Vegas list. I continue to come back to Boomie's Seattle list because he has shown last set that red blue is not an issue for SteelSong. because I still think he's undefeated into red-blue with SteelSong. So I took his Seattle list and kind of copy pasted it. And this is just because he did really good in Seattle, so why change a whole lot? So what I did is I added the Lilos because Lilos have worked really well for me. I still like the Svens. I think Sven presents a lot. It saves your Smee, it readies your Piglet, and it quests for 2. And so I'm between this place of just going to 4 Plutos and 2 Smees, or maybe even 2 of something else. But this has been working really well. I continue to like the Kita, and I think the thing I like about the Kita versus the Robin Hood is Kita is still a force to be reckoned with when you play her on 5. Whereas if you play a Robin Hood on turn 5, it's just a 3/6 that dies to a whole lot of stuff. Now, kind of, right? It dies to Medusas and things like that, Ice Block Brawl. But Kita comes down and says, you pretty much can't challenge with anything next turn. And that is really effective in a meta that challenges so much. So just, it's felt good. It still lets me play my wheel. I don't know if Gastons are the way. I don't know if Svens are the way. But it's a list that lets me keep one of the things I love so much about SteelSong being a whole new world while still playing it. And like I said, we've seen Boomie continue to do well with pretty much this exact list. If you look at Vegas and Seattle, he kind of flip-flop between Robin Hoods and Kitas, ran 1 here or 2 there, but the list generally stays the same, and there's something to be said about that. There's a lot to be said about that. So this is another list that I played with the idea of going, but again, I chickened out and I went with what I was more comfortable with. So really quick, I wanted to talk about a couple things into the red-blue matchup, and I should have titled this like red-blue mulligan, but because at the end of this video, I'm going to have my match between my red-blue opponent, Ollie, and it's 2 times speed, so you guys are more than welcome to watch it or not, but these are just kind of some of my thoughts going into the match and what I'm hoping for. And on the play, I want the shift line. I want a whole new world. Now, I would only keep a whole new world if I had a whole lot of Inkables, but I really want the whole new world on turn 3 because going into this match, I knew that I had an idea that Ali wouldn't be on Quills because Sailor wasn't on Quills. And I know a lot of red-blue players will kind of wait to see what Sailor does and then go that route and test what's going on. With that being said, red-blue is back on Quills now, so it changes things a little bit. But I really want the whole new world so I can refill and start going crazy again. So I could play a Daisy on turn 1, a Lilo or Smee on turn 2, or double 1-drops. Hopefully a Robin Hood plus something else on turn 2. And then I can shift Robin Hood and sing a whole new world and then start going wide again. And maybe that wide is a Pete and a 1-drop or 2 Smees, a Lawrence. It doesn't matter. But it lets that shift whole new world, lets me continue to go wide, and it forces them to have a B prep. Or depending on what I play, it forces them to have the big Sizu. On the draw, I just want to go fast. I don't look for the shift. I don't generally want the shift line because they most likely brawl it before I get to use it. With that being said, if it's already in my hand, then I'm not too, I'm never upset to see the shift line. Because if I play Robin Hood on turn 1, then if I get to the shift line, then cool. Because it opens up a whole new world. If I don't, I'm not bothered by it. I think I'd be much happier seeing Daisy into a really good 2-drop, into a good 3-drop, and just continue to go from there. Pete in the next turn would be great because they're getting close to B prep. Just a lot of different options. So this is kind of what I'm thinking. I love these cards going into it. I didn't put the Robin Hood shift line here. I don't know why. But Lilo down there because Lilo, again, is just a force to be reckoned with. I'm not even upset seeing her on turn 2 I'd rather see something like Grammatala because it, or not Grammatala, I'd rather see Smee because it trades into Grammatala. But at least if I have Lilo, that threat is now in my discard. So I'm not upset if I see Lilo on turn 2. I'd actually be very okay and happy about that. But this is just some of my thoughts. Takeaways from the match that I'm about to show, or takeaways from the red-blue match. Every game is different. You guys will notice at the start, Ollie's a local. He's a very competitive player. He's a very good player. He's been a Magic the Gathering player for a very long time. He went to Vegas and won a Let It Go. And you'll notice that some of the banter was a little short at the start. And that is 100% my fault. And I am 100% to blame for that because my attitude towards Red Blue was really bad last set. And to the point where I pretty much just instant conceded when I would play any Red Blue. And I would just be really upset about it. So I know Ollie going into the match was already like, gosh, dang it. Like, I don't want to play this guy. I don't want to listen to him cry this whole time about Red Blue. And I'm pretty ashamed of that it got to that point, that that's how I was seen when it came to playing against Red Blue. But I totally understand as well. So understand that every game is different. And I went into the event today, or this weekend, with that idea that I needed to change my attitude. And it played a huge difference because I actually played out these games. Normally against Red Blue, I would just concede or play it out. And if, like, by turn 4, I would normally have conceded. So really bad attitude that I've fixed now. I have fixed it. I did better. I played out these matches, and it made a big difference. I got the win and was able to move on from there. So yeah, just watch your attitude. Understand every game is different. Don't be that guy that people don't want to then play against. And because you're just kind of just a piece of crap human. All right. So yeah, for that, yeah. Anyways, Lilo's a beast. Lilo's an absolute monster. You saw her do crazy things with Frank Karsten, and Lilo just is an absolute beast. Okay, if you're doubting Lilo, you're on the losing side. You're on the wrong side of the hill there. Lilo is a monster. Okay, get over her bad parts. Okay, because there are things in her repertoire that aren't great, but she's a really, really good card. Bait their B preps. All right. What I mean by that is make them play B prep when you're into a red deck, because then you just get to bring back your Lilos for free. And all their best opportunity at that point is they play a Maui or a Medusa the next turn. But if you brought back multiple Lilos, then you just get to quest. So try and bait their B preps. You have the ability to go in a little bit wider now when you have Lilos in your discard, because you go wide and say you have to answer this. But if you do, I have my Lilos in my discard. If you don't, I just win. Now, you still can go too wide. Like, you'll see at one point in the match, I played a Daisy I just didn't have to play, and I got punished for it. So, and then finally, Red Blue's coming back to Quills. So do understand that as well. We are going to start seeing them on Quills again. All of them, maybe not. And maybe it doesn't stick. Maybe Sailor's just testing it right now, and he might like no Quills more. But I do think while they're not on Quills, it is a huge benefit to SteelSong. Because when they're not on Quills, we get to play a whole new world whenever we want. Whereas if they're on Quills, we might be motivated to hold off because they've quilled down to 1 card and we don't want to give them 7 new cards. So big benefit, but we'll see how long it lasts. But with that, I think the only thing left is the video itself. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna have this video playing. There are notes throughout it, not a whole lot, but just kind of takeaways, things I messed up on, things I could have done better. But thanks for watching the video. It was an awesome tournament, a great list. I'm really happy with the list. I might honestly not change anything, but those are 3 lists that I'm at right now, kind of testing and kind of playing around with to see what works, what doesn't. And you know, if you do use one of the lists, let me know how it's working. Or if you're using a SteelSong list, how's that working? But ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the video. I'm going to take off for now. I'll see you around. All right.